Imagine, for a moment, a land utterly closed off, a vast ancient empire, shrouded in mystery, suspicious of outsiders. Now picture one man, a young Englishman with no money, no powerful denominational backing, just an unwavering conviction. How could he possibly hope to reach millions of souls in such a forbidden place?
It sounds impossible, doesn't it? Like something out of a legend. But this isn't fiction. This is the incredible story of Hudson Taylor, often called the father of inland China. And what's fascinating, man, is that his story isn't about his own inherent greatness or extraordinary gifts. It's truly about his total, radical dependence on a great God.
Exactly. His life was a living testament to that thesis. It's almost as if God deliberately chose someone who, by worldly standards, had so little, to demonstrate his limitless power. And it all started, surprisingly, not in some grand theological college, but in the gritty, impoverished slums of Hull, England.
That's where his preparation really began, a preparation that was almost shockingly radical. Taylor purposefully chose to live in the poorest areas, treating the sick and the destitute. He didn't just observe poverty, he immersed himself in it. He even chose to live on water and brown bread for extended periods, not out of necessity initially, but to save every penny for the mission field he felt called to, and to learn to trust God for daily provision.
Think about that. He was intentionally stripping away every comfort, every perceived security, so that when he did step onto that mission field, he'd already be intimately familiar with utter reliance. He was training himself, physically and spiritually, for a life of complete dependence. This wasn't some theoretical exercise, it was visceral.
And it forged in him this foundational principle, moving men through God by prayer alone. He believed that if God's work was to be done, God himself would provide. His secret life of prayer wasn't just a habit, it was his lifeline, his strategy, his primary resource. He spent hours, sometimes entire nights in prayer, convinced that this was where the real work was done, long before any physical action was taken.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, about our own strategies today? How often do we rush into action, relying on our own strength or resources, before truly kneeling in prayer? Taylor saw prayer not as a preliminary step, but as the engine itself.
Absolutely. It wasn't about networking or fundraising pitches in boardrooms back in England, or leveraging political connections. It was about direct appeals to the Almighty. This deep spiritual insight, this conviction, set the stage for everything that followed.
And what followed was nothing short of revolutionary, but not without immense conflict. When Taylor first arrived in China, the prevailing wisdom among Western missionaries was to stay within the safety of the treaty ports, those coastal cities where Westerners had legal rights. They dressed in their Western clothes, lived in their Western homes, and often remained culturally separate.
But Taylor did the unthinkable. He saw the disconnect. He realized that if he wanted to reach the Chinese people, truly reach them, he had to become one of them. So, he shaved his head, adopted the queue, that long braid worn by Chinese men, and started wearing traditional Chinese dress. Can you imagine the scandal this caused?
Oh, it was massive. Fellow missionaries, often from more established denominations, were appalled. They saw it as going native, as compromising his identity, as abandoning the dignity of a Western gentleman. The religious establishment back home thought he was losing his mind, disrespecting his heritage. He was heavily criticized, often ostracized, for this radical approach.
It really highlights that often the most significant opposition to pioneering work doesn't come from the world, but from within one's own religious circles, doesn't it? He was accused of apostasy, of being eccentric. But Taylor understood something profound that many others missed. He was living out 1 Corinthians 9:22. I have become all things to all men, that I might by all means save some.
He recognized that cultural barriers were often far more formidable than theological ones. His goal wasn't to westernize China, but to introduce Christ to China. And to do that, he had to speak their language, live their customs, and earn their trust, not as a foreign conqueror, but as one of them. It was a strategy born of love and humility, despite the scorn it drew.
And he didn't just wear the clothes, he learned the language fluently, delved into their traditions, and treated the Chinese people with a respect that was often lacking from his European contemporaries. He transcended mere evangelism. He practiced incarnation. He embodied the message.
This commitment, this radical trust, was tested in ways most of us can barely comprehend. The mission was grueling, resources were scarce. But then came the truly dark night. Personal tragedy struck with crushing force. He lost his young daughter Gracie in 1867, and then, only a few years later, his beloved wife Maria in 1870.
Losing a child and then your life partner, on the mission field, far from home, with little support, is the kind of blow that shatters most people's faith, isn't it? That could have been the end. The point where he said, "I've given enough, God has abandoned me."
But it wasn't the end. In fact, it was the crucible that led to his greatest spiritual breakthrough. He describes what he called his exchanged life experience. He was struggling, feeling the weight of his own inadequacy, his own lack of faith to carry on.
And this is where it gets really profound. He wasn't praying for more faith or more strength or more resources in that moment of despair. He realized he didn't need to try harder to have faith. Instead, he needed to simply rest in the faithfulness of the vine, as he called Jesus, drawing from John 15. He realized that Christ's faithfulness was already sufficient, already present within him.
It was a shift from trying to believe to resting in belief, from striving to have faith to acknowledging Christ's unwavering faithfulness. He understood that the work wasn't dependent on his ability to generate faith, but on God's constant, unfailing presence. It was about abiding.
And that breakthrough, that exchange life experience, profoundly changed him. It liberated him from the burden of self-effort and plunged him deeper into a boundless trust. It wasn't an end to his suffering, but a new way to suffer, anchored in Christ's strength, not his own.
From this renewed spiritual depth, the true impact began to blossom. In 1865, he founded the China Inland Mission, or CIM. And what set CIM apart was its radical policies: no guaranteed salaries, complete reliance on God for provision, and critically, a commitment to sending missionaries into the interior of China, beyond the treaty ports.
It was a monumental undertaking, driven by pure faith, and the CIM started attracting some remarkable individuals, including what became known as the Cambridge Seven. These were highly educated, privileged young men from Cambridge University who left behind promising careers in England to join Taylor in China. Their decision sent shockwaves through British society, inspiring countless others.
Their decision, their willingness to sacrifice everything, validated Taylor's vision and his faith-based approach. It wasn't just about one man anymore, it was about a movement, propelled by ordinary people doing extraordinary things because they trusted an extraordinary God.
And the results speak for themselves. By the time of Hudson Taylor's death in 1905, the China Inland Mission had grown exponentially. It had sent over 800 missionaries into China, and by that point there were more than 125,000 Chinese Christians affiliated with the CIM.
Think of that. From one man with nothing, relying on God alone, to 250,000 people touched by the gospel. It's a staggering legacy, a testament to the power of radical, unwavering trust. His life embodied his most famous quote: "God's work done in God's way will never lack God's supplies."
That quote, man, it encapsulates everything he stood for. It's a bold declaration of faith that continues to challenge us today. His life proves that it's not about our cleverness or our resources, but about our surrender to God's plan and his provision. He showed us that when God leads, he provides.
Indeed. So, as we reflect on Hudson Taylor's incredible journey, I think we have to ask ourselves, what is the China in our own lives? What's that seemingly impossible situation, that overwhelming challenge, that dream that feels too big, that requires total and utter trust in Christ?
That's a powerful question. For Taylor, it was a literal nation. For us, it might be a relationship, a career path, a financial struggle, a personal calling, or even just our daily walk. But the principle remains the same. God's work, done in God's way, will never lack God's supplies. Hudson Taylor didn't just preach it, he lived it, and his legacy continues to inspire millions to trust God in the impossible.
A truly inspiring story of faith in action. Thank you for joining us as we delved into the life of Hudson Taylor. Until next time, keep trusting, keep abiding, and keep seeking God's way.
Thank you. It's a story that truly makes you rethink what's possible when you surrender everything to God. Farewell for now.